such as tender ivy or willow leaves. In the hot weather, they will linger in water to keep cool and to get rid of annoying midges. It's rare for these two fast friends to be out of each other's sight. They know their territory very well and have a network of trails to follow. This comes in handy should they need to escape from hunting dogs. There are hundreds of red deer in Fontainebleau. They have no natural predators, so they are fair game for hunters. When they sense danger, they will flee as fast as possible. Their long legs give them an advantage as they plunge into the river water and out of sight. The water also helps to dilute their scent, which dogs can trace for hours. These two stags will spend the winter, spring, and summer together. But when autumn arrives, it's a different story. Their antlers have lost their velvety texture. Their coats have grown and darkened. They are now full of testosterone and can only think of one thing: the female deer, or hinds. They mingle with the females to get their scent. In turn, their bellows excite the females and help to stimulate their ovulation. From this moment, there will be no more sharing between the males. There can only be one winner. This is a battle without compromise. It will only end when one of the males backs down and surrenders. The hinds can only watch and wait. Finally, the cry of victory. The females gather around their triumphant hero. The champion will stay with his harem for about a month, fighting off any male who tries to enter his territory. But then, when the mating season is over, all will change once again. Battles will be forgotten, and the two stags of Fontainebleau will once again become inseparable friends. Leaving the historic outskirts of Paris, we journey south to the most famous mountain range in Europe, the Alps. Well known for its ski resorts and stunning scenery, there's also plenty of rugged room for wildlife. This is Éclat National Park. From the top of snowy glaciers, water rushes down, forming icy, fast-flowing rivers. Within the lower torrents is a small bird with unique abilities. The dipper feeds on insect larvae that live in the riverbeds. Despite the freezing temperatures, it dives deep into the glacial water. Using its wings to swim, it can reach depths of 6 feet and remain there for about 15 seconds. It will do this over and over, day after day, in order to feed its insatiable young. Moving up to the high-altitude pastures of these mountains, there is an animal that lives below ground in a deep system of underground burrows. These are alpine marmots. They come up to the surface to play, mate, and feed. They are social creatures and live in small family groups. Alpine marmots used to be widely hunted due to the belief that their fat would ease rheumatism when rubbed on the skin. In some areas of France, they have been successfully reintroduced and are now beginning to flourish again. Marmots are highly defensive animals and have developed a kind of collective surveillance system. Sentinels take turns to guard their territory. With a range of different calls, they can warn others of any potential danger. There's good reason. The legendary golden eagle. The marmot's warning system has to be good, as the eagle is indeed a fearsome predator. Eagles have existed here for hundreds of thousands of years, far longer than any human settlers. They have built their homes in the highest parts of the mountains. To protect their nests, they can be fiercely territorial. If another eagle gets too close, they will fight, sometimes to the death. The eagle rules the skies, but they are not alone at the summit. Amazingly, these nimble chamois thrive on a vertical existence. Farther south in the peaks of the Verdun Canyon, a small creature can be found that seems almost immune to the laws of gravity. The wall creeper, known locally as the butterfly bird. Arnaud Pouty and Stephanie Baudet share a passion with this small bird for terrifying heights. They are champion European climbers. They brave the sheer and frightening cliff faces, inspired by a glimpse of these undaunted little rock climbers. The butterfly bird has large feet with solid curved claws, which enable it to stand with perfect balance. It gets its name because of the way it scales the cliffs by fluttering its colorful wings. Its wide wings enable it to take advantage of the rising currents to effortlessly reach great heights. Considerably more effort is required by the climbers. And occasionally their balance is not quite as perfect. Arnaud and Stephanie share the nesting choice of the butterfly bird. They pitch their portaledge into the side of the cliff, high above the huge emptiness below. Sleeping at such a great height is like being suspended momentarily out of time. Turning north, we head past the Alps to reach a low mountain chain on the French-German border, the Vosges Mountains. Fed by waterfalls, a rich, green, magical forest thrives. Beech, oak, spruce, and pine grow here in abundance, each vying to be the biggest. And like a storybook, it's a forest that holds quite a cast of interesting characters. On any spring morning, the woods are full of birdsong, and the comings and goings of its most energetic resident, the badger. Her life is organized with great precision. She wakes up at 7, takes care of a little business behind the big tree at 7:05, breakfast at 7:10, a quick bath at 7:15, followed by a tour of the property until 8 o'clock. Although her schedule doesn't usually change much, she has an important project that is going to disturb her routine. It's mating season. She's already picked up on the scent of an eligible male. And with that in mind, it's time to look for a suitable home for a family. Like any respectable badger, she needs a home with one main entrance and several secondary exits. More important, however, is finding the right terrain. And so digging begins. This won't do. Better look elsewhere. Oops. And here looks just right. A high ceiling, visible beams. A fox has already done a good part of the work. This will be just fine. Our badger knows there are several males that live on the other side of the lake. What's important is to avoid a fickle, unfaithful one. Some males might leave the moment the youngsters are born. This one smells interesting. Where is he? With noses to the ground, it's still a challenge to find each other in all the rocky nooks and crannies. Then, there he is. With successful introductions over, it's time to go home. There's a little confusion, but our badger knows the way. Now the couple can get to work on their family home. They'll have to dig out a lot of earth to create galleries on several levels. Soon, 5 young badgers will be waking up at 7 a.m., doing their business at 7:05, breakfast at 7:10, baths at 7. As a busy summer comes to a close, high overhead, flocks of geese begin their journey to southern climes to spend the winter. Crossing the Vosges, they fly over the fertile plains of Alsace. It's an ancient route over picturesque towns and farms that were settled long ago in these rolling hills. The geese have medieval landmarks to guide them. But mostly, they have a remarkable homing instinct that brings them back to the same area year after year, even when their migration takes them halfway around the world. The youngsters take advantage of their parents' slipstream. The whole family flies in formation, as if part of an aerial platoon. This saves them all energy, and that helps them cover almost 200 miles a day. But youngsters don't always have the patience for long trips. One young female has an independent streak. Instead of saving energy, she spends her time doing acrobatics, playing, and daydreaming. Her constant lagging behind and falling out of formation is wreaking havoc within the group. But she finally falls in line when the family spots a perfect place to land for the night. They always look for water, stopping to rest in marshlands, by rivers or by lakes. Come dawn, they will have to wait for the cold fog to lift before taking to the air again. True to her independent nature, the young rebel is straight off on her own to explore the surroundings. But as the morning clears, she hears the family calling for takeoff. She scrambles to get there, just in time. She needs to pay more attention to where they're going. Next year, she and all her siblings will be making this journey alone. As the geese head south, we head west to a region near the Atlantic Ocean called Poitou-Charentes. It's home to one of the largest wetlands in France, known as the Poitevin Marsh. Here, seawater meets fresh water. In a place that's half water, half land, wildlife flourishes. In the spring, it is teeming with new life. And spring, for one creature here, is a time of incredible transformation. The dragonfly. This small larva has spent more than a year under the water. Tonight, it will undergo an amazing metamorphosis. It appears to inflate its new body so that it can break out of its old skin. Its new feet emerge, but the dragonfly can't use them yet, as they're still too soft. it must wait for them to harden. In this position, it's vulnerable. Falling now would be certain death. Not far from the dragonfly's precarious perch, another new birth is about to happen. These are greater horseshoe bats, a protected species across Europe. The bats will often roost in old, unused buildings in the late spring and summer, going out after sunset to hunt and feed. This is a maternity roost, and it's time for the new babies to be born. For this female, the contractions have begun. The head appears first. The mother begins by cleaning her newborn. She licks it and frees its ears, which were stuck to its head. Once the baby is free, it immediately begins to suckle, and will do so for the first month of its life. The mother wraps her wings around her precious bundle, protecting it from any danger. Back on the moonlit water, the dragonfly's feet are at last hard enough. Finally, it can shed the trappings of its former self. Now its soft and intricate wings slowly unfurl. Early morning has arrived, and the transformation is complete. 4 independent wings on a perfectly aerodynamic body. The small larva that came out of the water last night has become one of the most sophisticated flying creatures in the world. Soon it will find a partner, and the cycle will begin again. The Poitevin Marsh is a fascinating area. It was once completely covered with wetlands and full of insects. Around the 10th century, monks started the process of drying up the swamps. They built dams to stop the water rising, and dug canals to evacuate rainwater, and to free up the fertile soil. The land could then be used for agriculture. But down through the centuries, some areas have remained untouched. Many species of birds come to nest here. Within this wetlands, there's a hidden forest which serves as a nursery for a colony of herons. These fledglings are 3 weeks old and are constantly hungry. One of the 3 youngsters stands back while the other 2 devour everything their mother regurgitates. Usually both parents will help feed the offspring, but here the male has disappeared. The mother has to work twice as hard to feed her young. She will fly up to 20 miles hunting for food in the swamps. Competition for fishing spots can be fierce. Competition within the nest is just as fierce. The two strongest chicks have united against the weakest and smallest. He can only eat the leftovers. The problem is, there aren't any. A single parent cannot possibly feed all three. Instinctively, they attack their little brother in what is a struggle for survival. The weakest of the three will die so that the other two can live. The laws of nature can often seem cruel. Moving back to the south of France, there is an area known as the Cévennes. A maze of mountains, deep valleys, and winding rivers. The river water descending from these granite mountains has carved out the distinctive contours of this stunning area. Over time, the water has dug out canyons hundreds of feet deep. In the cliffs of these spectacular canyons, there is an extraordinary animal, the griffon vulture. Until recent years, vultures had almost completely disappeared. Successful reintroduction programs have dramatically increased the number of these formidable birds. Vultures live in colonies, and they work together to scavenge for food. It's 6 in the morning, and the sun hasn't as yet penetrated the depths of the canyons. Without the sun to warm the air and make it rise, the vultures do not fly. They may be hungry, but there's no question of moving yet. At last, the air can carry them. Like an air squadron, dozens of vultures fill the sky. The warm currents help them gain height. As part of their scavenging strategy, they divide up the territory. The large birds fly several miles, scanning every inch of their land, yet never losing sight of the other vultures. If one of them spots something, it immediately dives down. The other vultures haven't seen it, but they've noticed that one of them is absent. This means there is something to eat down below. In a matter of seconds, the entire colony gathers at the feast. The work of one benefits all. Each bird can now return to its nest with a share of the spoils for its youngsters. Vultures eat rotting carcasses, helping to prevent the spread of disease, cleansing the wilderness. The return of these imposing birds across this region is widely celebrated. To the north of the Cévennes mountain range is a region called the Lozère. The mountains of the Lozère are home to an insect which is unique to this area. A black bee. It is only thanks to intensive conservation efforts that the pure breed of this bee can still be found here. The bees sally forth using scent to locate a source of nectar. These flower-loving insects are workaholics, and they all work together. When a successful forager returns to the hive, it passes the scent of the flowers to its nestmates to help them find the same patch of blossoms. Through a series of dances, it indicates the direction, distance, and even the quantity of pollen available. But every bee has to earn the right to forage. It starts out as a cleaner, a nursemaid, and then a builder before finally being promoted to nectar gatherer. Then, after only 30 days, it will fall to the ground, struck down by exhaustion. Its short life is dedicated to the good of the hive and the all-important production of golden honey. Lozère is the source of many rivers, the most famous of which is the River Tarn. In the spring, the Tarn is at its most powerful, with exciting, fast-flowing torrents. Within this river is a creature which is beginning to make a comeback in France. The otter. With its streamlined body, the otter is a skillful submarine predator. It has powerful webbed feet and whiskers that help it detect the slightest movement of any underwater prey. The otter's stretch of the river runs for 25 miles. Otters are a threatened species across Europe, but with the help of protection laws and the improvement of water quality, there is evidence that their numbers are gradually recovering. Not everyone in the river is enthusiastic about this. Otters have healthy appetites. But a healthy river with a vibrant predator is good for everyone in the end. 100 miles off the southeastern coast of France, in the Mediterranean Sea, lies the island of Corsica. 2/3 of this majestic island is made up of mountains, which form one single chain along its entire length. And a peninsula on its west coast has been set aside as the Scandola Nature Reserve. It's famous for its high, red cliffs that rise 3,000 feet out of the sea, and its almost inaccessible islets and coves. Scandola is one of the oldest reserves in France and a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It's been strictly protected in order to return the area to its natural state. The sea conceals another extraordinary landscape. Scandola Reserve guards one of the Mediterranean's most important ecosystems. It's a favorite spawning ground for many kinds of fish. The eggs laid here are carried by the current outside the limits of the reserve and help nurture all the neighboring marine life. And it's the home of a once endangered fish, the grouper. The grouper would normally live on the sea floor at depths of up to 1,000 feet, but here it can be seen much closer to the surface. Groupers are born female, but by the age of 16, they change sex to become male. As part of their courtship, the males change color as a means of seduction. Gatherings of groupers are returning to the Mediterranean, all made possible by the protection of Scandola Reserve. Close to the reserve is a beach where fresh water joins the sea, the Fango Delta. In these natural ponds, there lives a creature that has existed for millions of years, the turtle. Although found in many different places, the European pond turtle is under threat from water pollution and habitat destruction. Its numbers have been declining. Here, though, it appears to be flourishing. As a cold-blooded reptile, it needs a dose of solar energy to warm up. But this shy species will dive right back into water if disturbed. Here, it hunts for fish, insects, or mollusks. It is the mating season, and the courtship technique of the turtle is a curious one. The male approaches the female suddenly, pinning her in place, biting her face and neck as they mate. If he's not careful, the technique can inflict serious injuries on the female. It's brutal, and she struggles now to drown, but somehow they manage to continue the line. Moving inland towards the center of Corsica, the terrain is full of dense, thorny bushes. To survive this prickly environment, you need a very thick skin. The king of this terrain is the wild boar. Most wild boars live in close-knit groups of around 20. They're mostly families of females and their young. Females will normally have between 4 and 8 babies, and they are very protective mothers. Boars are scavengers and eat almost anything they come across, including grass, nuts, roots, even small reptiles. During the mating season, large solitary males will travel across the countryside in search of female groups. They are capable of covering several miles of varied and difficult terrain every day. This breeding strategy tests their strength and endurance. It helps to maintain a strong population, not just here on the island of Corsica, but across the whole of France. Heading north, we return to the mainland, where the rising mountains meet the warm Mediterranean weather. In the foothills of the Alps, the deep forest can be a scary place for little ones. It's early spring, and these 2 wolf cubs are just 3 weeks old. It's the first time they have ventured out of their dark den to see their surroundings. They will need to learn who is friend and who is foe in their forest home. As daylight comes, there's a whole new world above their den to explore. But the cubs are afraid. Their parents return to check on them. The pups are cared for by all members of the pack, but their mother